yeah, you founded EO. How did that come about?
So I had a friend at Harvard who had been involved in launching the student entrepreneurship group there. You have to know, in the early 80s, it still wasn't cool, at least in the US, to be an entrepreneur. It was more of, hey, when are you going to get a real job? Doctor, lawyer, accountant. But it started to take hold, I think, really with Steve Jobs, and Michael Dell was just getting ready to come on the scene and the like. So he was visiting me in Wichita at the Center for Entrepreneurship, and we said, hey, why don't we start a student group? So in '84, launched a group called ACE, Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs, and we thought, as a publicity stunt, why don't we identify the top 100 young entrepreneurs under the age of 30? And we'll use that award as a way to attract them to come talk to the students. And that very first list, number one on the list was Steve Jobs. And it's always a fun kind of trivia question. What was his revenue? He was 28 at the time, and relative to Bill Gates. And by the way, they're the same age. Apple was almost 2 billion. And he was in his late 20s. Microsoft, by the way, was only 256 million. So Apple was 8 times the revenue. That's why really Bill Gates always kind of was in the shadow of Steve Jobs. And he then got fired. Steve got fired from Apple. And I reached out, and in 1986, I had a chance to host him for his first public speech that he gave after being fired from Apple. And I brought together about 1,200 young entrepreneurs, including Michael Dell and Mark Cuban and many of the others that have become quite household names, at least in the United States, if not around the world. And we then threw a party for him that night. And it was crazy, Nathan. Steve came to it, but he stood in the corner and he was alone. And I remember a mentor of mine, Joe Mancuso, saying, it's okay to be independent, but no reason to be alone. And I turned to a friend of mine, Greg Stem, and I said, look, we need to form an organization for the Steves of the world. And it was that night that the idea for YEO was birthed. It took me about a year to raise the money, get it in place. So 87 is our launch date. But I really credit Steve as being the first real young entrepreneur that spurred a lot of us and a lot of everybody to launch companies. And it was that night that the idea was birthed. By the way, we're approaching the 10th anniversary of his passing. It's been 10 years, it's been a decade. And it's amazing how, look, I bet against Apple. I really thought it would collapse after his death, being such an iconic symbol and founder. But, what's neat is, you've really done a great job by how the organization runs when you're not there. And, death is, kind of a permanent not there for a decade. So it's impressive what he was able to do. And the first thing that comes to mind, and I've only seen it, Nathan, a handful of times. And in fact, the actor that played Steve Jobs in the movie, oh, no, it was playing Mark Zuckerberg, was the stare. And Mark had happened to be in a workshop of mine back when he was at Harvard, when I was teaching it at Babson. And I remember him having this look, Nathan. It would just burn through your eyes. Michael Dell has it. When I met Steve Jobs has it. And I've met just a handful of entrepreneurs that literally they can almost see right through you. And it's this intense focus. I think we're seeing a lot of it with Djokovic here in the US Open as he's going for, a record series, Grand Slam, not been done since 1969. And so first, it's intense focus. Number two is they're actually rabid learners. It's Bill Gates wanting to read 50 books a year, and he always publishes lists. Mark Zuckerberg kind of copied him by doing a book every 2 weeks. Mark Cuban. I've known Mark for decades, but I didn't realize till I read his book that he's read for 3 hours every day since he was in his 20s. And his rule is, I just want to find one idea that I could apply to one of the 150 plus companies he either owns or invests in. And so I really do think leaders are readers is a real thing, and they're hungry to learn. And that's why I think folks gravitate towards EO and YPO. It's a place where we can continue our informal education and learn, as you said, from each other's experiences. So I think intense focus, I think a thirst for continuing to learn is critical. And then, you know what? They're just extremely disciplined and willing to work hard. I love that Elon Musk talks about that. He says, you want to be successful? Work really hard. And you've got to put in the hours. And a lot of folks aren't willing to do that.
Hey guys, hope you're loving our videos and that you're getting heaps of value from them. If you are, make sure to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe to join the Founder Fam. If you did enjoy this video and want to continue to master your skills, make sure you click here to access your free training now, where we'll go into way more depth with this founder.